today's webcast is going to be a little different. If you followed some of the civil data management webcasts that we've done in the past, we've really focused on kind of one solution from Autodesk. And really around Halloween of last year, of 2019, Autodesk made a second solution, a viable alternative to Vault. So, today's presentation is really going to be focused on comparing the two, talking a little bit about, what they do, how they work, but really neither, we just don't have the time to go into exhaustive product demonstrations. So if you see something you like and you'd like to know more about it, by all means, contact us and we can make sure you get the information that you're looking for. So a little bit about me. Again, my name is Joe Hedrick. I've been at Imaginet and a professional geek for almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years in September. Prior to that, I worked for a civil engineering and surveying firm. I also spent some time in a municipality. I live in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So I'm on the East Coast, and what I do for Imaginet is I manage part of the civil technical team, and we really focus on kind of all things civil engineering, surveying, and data management. So that was just a little bit about me, and here's our agenda. So we are going to look at multiple ways that we can share and collaborate with Civil 3D. And I'm going to keep today's presentation somewhat focused on the Civil 3D aspect. By all means, certainly AutoCAD and Revit and the other products, have play with the solution and plug into the solutions as well. But today's webcast, we're going to focus on Civil 3D. And we're going to look at two products. We're going to look at Autodesk Vault, which we've looked at in the past, and we're going to look at the up-and-coming product, which is called BIM360 Design. After that, we will, got just a quick summary, and then we will take questions. So at the end of today's session, what I hope everyone gets from it is exposure to these data management solutions from Autodesk. We're going to take a look at a small subset of their capabilities. Hopefully, you'll understand the benefits and the differences of each one. And again, getting your questions addressed. So let's get started. And as I get to travel around the really North America talking to different clients, as does my team. And it doesn't really matter who we talk to. That there's a story that starts to get written of we call them just areas of potential inefficiencies. And hopefully you guys will certainly be able to resonate with some or all of these, but really it just doesn't matter. Every conversation tends to come back to usually one of these 5 challenges. One of which being, especially when you talk about collaboration, is having a single place to store project data. And that sounds somewhat simple. However, it gets to be very difficult when you factor in firms that have multiple office locations. You're working with consultants and other partners on the project. How is there a single location, for project-related files, right? Or, as we like to say, is there a single point of truth? Another issue comes around security, making sure that, only the right people have the right access at the right time to be able to view and or modify project files. Standards, I think, will always be in the discussion as well. Trying to get everybody to standardize on workflows, processes, aesthetics of the drawings, the looks, the feels, etc. Versions, it's so many times, we'll go down a path of a design and decide that, what, I might need to back up and rethink this, or I want to go back to, a previous version that I had done of that design and go a different direction. And depending on the company, that can be something that's easily done, or that can be something that's a little more difficult. So we're definitely going to talk about that. And then, as I mentioned, just how to collaborate. How do you share information across disparate project teams, multiple companies, multiple geographic locations, could be, multiple continents involved. So these are the areas when we think of, managing information, these are the areas that we found are the areas for potential inefficiencies. So let's think about project information first. And projects are getting bigger. And whether or not the actual, physical size of the project is getting bigger or not, the project files for that project are getting larger. And if you think about all the data that gets involved that we have to manage, architectural data, there's civil data, there's documentation, there's correspondence, all of the sub-consultant information, imagery, point clouds, maybe data that clients, have provided, and really being able to manage this in one location is key to being able to collaborate effectively. When we think going hand in hand with that information is controlling the access to that information, right? There's a lot of people that potentially have their fingers into the project, from surveyors to architects to MEPs, designers, drafters, there's project managers, the owners, how do, or, is, one of the factors, involved in some of these projects is, A, how sensitive is the information? B, it could be as simple as just, hey, you're on the project team, you have access to it. And a lot of firms work that way, but there's always that somebody. And here's what I mean by that somebody. When you go to the location on the network server where, the files are supposed to be and they're gone. Well, who deleted this data? And the answer is usually, well, I don't know, somebody did. Or you go to open a drawing and it's nothing like you saved it last. Well, who's been in my drawing? Yeah, I don't know, somebody has. So that's what I mean by somebody. And that's why, user access is so important. Controlling, who can get to this information and tracking once they do. As I alluded to a second ago, firms handle versioning in a lot of different ways. Sometimes, if you need to go back to a previous version of a file, you have to get, IT involved. Hey, can you restore this? Sometimes they have to go to tape backups, depending on how old it is. That can take an inordinate amount of time to do. Some people handle it with file folders, meaning, hey, here was the submittal on such and such date, 30% submittal on a particular date, 60% submittal on a different date, right? Some people handle this just with drive letters, moving things to, quote, archive drives. Naming conventions are, by far my favorites, because, I'm sure everybody on this call has saved the drawing and put -final at the end of it. And then something changes. And then it becomes final. Then it becomes final. I really mean it this time. Yeah, you get the idea. So, all of this stuff can create, confusion if there's extended project teams. And finally, let's think about how do we collaborate? How do we truly collaborate? And I would be willing to bet email, is close to the top of the list for everyone. Right? Hey, can you email me that file? Well, the second it gets emailed, it's probably out of date, because keep in mind, there could be, 5, 6, 20 other people, working on the design, progressing on the design. And the second that email, left the server, now it's, just a copy floating out there in space, right? It's not centralized. It's hard to find and track it. I mean, you're relying really on Outlook or G Suite at that point. SharePoint, anybody that uses SharePoint or that tells me that they use SharePoint, my follow-up question is always, yeah, do you like it? And I don't think I've had anybody say, yeah, we really love SharePoint. Usually it's, no, I hate it. We're looking for something else. Right? SharePoint's expensive. It's difficult to track things at times. All of this obviously depends on the setup, but you get where we're going with that. Network drives are probably the most common way, to collaborate. People have a J drive, a P drive, a Q drive. Everybody works off of that. That works fairly well, except, there's really no tracking of who does what and when. Also when you're working on larger drawings, across multiple locations, that might not be the greatest solution in the world. Yeah, now there are other technology ways around this, but working on a 30, 40, 50 meg file, across a WAN on somebody else's server, that can introduce some performance issues. And then what people usually do to remedy that is they'll copy it across and make it, another copy of the drawing. They'll work on that and then copy it back, hoping that they're not overwriting somebody else's work, et cetera. And then finally, we'll just call it cloud storage, basic cloud storage. These are the box.coms of the world, the OneDrives, the Dropbox, Google Drives, things like that. They're really not built for design files. I know, firms that make this work, but they're really not built for, large drawings and design processes. So Autodesk has two solutions, and we're going to talk about both of them. The very first one we're going to talk about is Vault Professional. This is the one, you've seen me talk about this in the past. You've seen me demo this, quite extensively in the past. But, the great thing about Vault is, number one, it's a very mature product. It has been around, for a very, very long time in the Civil 3D world. Civil 3D, you could say, kind of, came onto the scene with its preview version in, let's see, I think it was the 2004, Civil 3D 2004. So that had been calendar year 2003. And it was only a couple of years after that before there was an integration with Vault. Now, we could argue that integration with Vault didn't work so well, and I would happily agree with you there. But I think both products have grown up a whole lot since then, and Vault is a very viable solution for collaborating with Civil 3D. Right, we can access Vault from right inside of the Autodesk products, right? Civil 3D as well as the other ones. There are a couple of other integrations that Autodesk has built. One being for Microsoft Office, being able to access Vault right from inside Word or Excel or Outlook. The other integration being with MicroStation, to be able to store data, directly inside of Vault. Project teams can get up and running, fairly quickly with Vault. From a user perspective, It's not that difficult to use. There's a couple of things that need to change and need to tweak workflow wise, but for the most part, it's a fairly quick deployment. It's scalable, meaning you can start small and it will grow with you. And it is really designed for project processes and workflows. So with that being said, let's take a peek at Vault and Civil 3D. All right, so now we should be looking at my Civil 3D screen, and what I've got is just a very simple surface, and this happens to be one of the help drawings. So if it looks familiar, that's why. The thing with Vault is, especially to utilize it with Civil 3D, a client needs to be installed on the workstation, right? And by a client, this is a separate piece of software. It installs very similarly to AutoCAD or Civil 3D or the rest of the Autodesk products. This client gets installed, and there's a plugin that comes for Civil 3D, right? And it's this Vault plugin right up here at the top. The very first thing that you have to do, when utilizing Vault with Civil 3D, is you have to log into it. Vault is extremely permissions focused, as is BIM360 as well. But everything that the user has access to, or these permissions are really going to control what the user can see and what the user can do inside of the system. So, first things first, the client gets installed in Civil 3D. We have this projects node that shows up inside of Toolspace. So if you're thinking, yeah, I don't have projects inside of mine, yeah, you have to have the Vault add-in installed before you'll see this. And we're going to right-click on this, and we're going to log into it. Right, a little bit of server information. This can be tied to Active Directory if you like. In my case, I'm not going to do it. We're going to log in with this user called named Sam. Right, and in just a second, it starts to show me all of the directories and subfolders that Sam's got access to. There we go. Right, so in this case, we're going to make a brand new project. We'll do this a little quickly. So we'll say new here. Let's put it in that same 2020 folder. And our new project is going to be 2020-0002. If I wanted to use a project template, I could. This is really no different than creating a data shortcuts project. Really the only big difference in this whole dialog box is this first part right up here at the top as to what folder do we want it to go in. So for simplicity, I'm not going to do that. And we'll see that the project gets created. It's bold, so it's showing me that that's the one that's current. And if we expand this out, there we go. We can start to see, the area where project information is going to be stored. Now, in our case, we don't have any project information in here yet, but if we take a peek at, the very top of my drawing, we've got some icons that are new and very specific to Vault. If we hover over that icon, it's going to show us, A, the name of the drawing, and B, its status. Right, not in the Vault, check it in to add. So one of the big things that workflow-wise users have to get used to with utilizing Vault is pretty similar to any other data management system. Words like open and close get replaced with words like I want to check it out and I want to check it in. So this being the case, I will right-click and tell it simply I want to check this in. And what's going to happen? There we go. Get the dialog box. Again, it's just confirming the project to add this file to. We hit next. If I had a whole series of project folders, they would show up here. I mean, this is really where do I want to put it. We'll hit next through that. It has sensed that there are, actually, in this case, it's looking for dependencies. So the dependency is something like an external reference, an image, a PDF, anything that you might have referenced into this file. You know, in my case, we don't have that dependency. I don't have any references here. It's asking for comments. Comments are a really good thing in that you may remember what you're doing with this file today or from yesterday. You know, however, when you go back and look at this 6 months from now, you know, these comments are a really good thing just to help jog your memory. Also, they're searchable fields. So we can search for this, down the line. If you know, oh, I know I put this in the comment, that just becomes one more, one more way to be able to help locate a drawing. Finally, it's asking me, hey, I sense project information. I sense a surface in this file. Do you want to share it? Yes or no? Right. So this is, pretty similar to what happens in the data shortcuts world. And what's going to happen is I'm going to hit finish, and I told the system that I did not want to keep it checked out. And when it's checked out, that means I have write access to it. You know, I've got the ability to make edits to that file. When it's checked in, anybody else that has the permissions have access to it. Now, because I told it that I didn't want to keep it checked out, what you will see is the drawing close itself because Civil 3D is thinking that I'm done. It's saying, okay, you know what? He doesn't want to keep working on it, so yeah, he's done there. Now, if I told it that I wanted to keep it checked out, then no big deal. It would have kept the file open for me. Now, what's happening in the background is there is a little helper application that comes along with Vault called a job processor. And what it's doing right now is it's making what's called the visualization file for that drawing, right? These viz files are very important to help others when they're navigating and looking at this information inside of Vault. These viz files give them the previews to be able to look at. So just know that that's going on, behind the scenes. I'm going to slide that off to a different one. And let's take a look at what users would see. Right, so here we are in the Vault client. And this is somewhat important, and it's an important difference to note that through the Vault client, this is the primary way to visualize the data that's inside of Vault. A lot of times people want to, oh, can I just navigate to it through Windows Explorer? No, you can't, because the client is the way that Vault controls access. Right? If we just navigate to it through Windows Explorer, there's no way for it to know who's doing what at that point. I'm going to refresh this so you'll see my new folder structure pop in. Come on. And what we'll see is this particular file, v-topo, that's the one I just put in. Right now, it is in a state called work in progress. And you'll notice this little lock beside of it. And the lock beside of it is because the account that I'm logged in with inside of Vault right now doesn't have edit access for Sam's drawings, essentially. Right? So Vault's doing its job. It's saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to show it to you, but it's locked, meaning it's read-only. Right? Here on the History tab, here's where we can see everything that's been going on about this file. Right? The name of it, who did it, when they did it, the comment that we typed in. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump up to this other file real quick just to show you or give an example of one that's got quite a bit of history that goes along with it. And what we can do with this history, we can see there are 13 versions of this file, right? To vault, a version is any time the file gets checked out, something done to it, and checked back in, that becomes a version. So if there is a version that's available inside a vault, that version can be restored at, with about a 5-click sequence. If the user has the right permissions, they can restore a previous version themselves. They don't have to call IT. They don't have to get anybody else involved. They can simply right-click on the file, pull it out, and check it back in, and it becomes the newest version. But we can see that this particular file, I started working with this, or a login. This was me, Jay Hedrick. I did this on December 4th, 2013. And we can see every iteration that I've done to that file since then. Along with this, I've talked about the visualization files. So there is a preview file, or a preview tab. And what this preview tab wants to do is show the drawing. This is great for users who don't have CAD, who don't need CAD. A lot of times there's, manager types that, really just need to be able to look at a drawing, maybe print it out, check a distance, what have you. But, they don't really need to do a whole lot of edits. This is perfect, right? It's showing model space and all of the sheets. This is essentially design review running in the background. So, obviously we can zoom in here. There's very, very tight title block, integrations. It's no secret that this 60% approval up here is showing 60% approval down here. These two properties are tied together, through the Vault calls them user-defined properties. It's essentially, metadata. But because we're using, running with design review here, we can, check distances. What's the distance between, these 2 points? We can do areas, polyline distances, really anything that you would do in design review. And if you do implement digital markups with design review, you can simply right-click here and say, I want to open this DWF file and design review, and you've got the full application available to you at that point. All right, so what we're going to do, so we're signed in as an administrator down here in the right. Now, keep in mind that dear old Sam was the one that's working on this drawing. So let's say Sam needs to continue work on his drawing. What he's going to do is, now that it's inside a vault, it's going to show up down here. There's a big white open circle, meaning that if we take a look at the tooltip, here's the drawing, here's the state that it's in. Because it's a big white open circle, it means that it's available to be checked out. So if Sam wants to work on this, he's going to check it out. Include file dependencies. If there were XREFs and he needed to check those out as well, he would. And what this is going to do now is it's going to lock the drawing in the database. You're going to see this change to a check. And secondly, what it did was it copied it down from Vault to my local machine. Right? We never actually work on the source files inside of the Vault system. It's constantly a series of, I'm going to copy it down locally, do what I need to do with it, and copy it back up. Now, by that very nature, in every implementation of Vault that I've done over the years, that basically is an inherent speed boost, right? The drawings work faster because they're local. Right? We're not working over a network. We're not saving to a network server, right? The performance increases because the files get pulled down locally. Now, at this point, the user can do, really whatever they need to do, right? So maybe we want to draw. Yeah, I'm just gonna say we're just gonna draw. Well, yeah, there's my rectangle. It's tiny, but it was there. Let's put another one in here. Go. And as soon as I hit save, you'll see that icon changes color. It went from just a gray checkout to a green checkout, right? And really what all that green means is the version that I'm working on my system right here is newer than the version that's inside of Vault. Now, what everybody else sees while that drawing is checked out is they're going to see, the file, but it's going to be gray with a line through it. And if we click on this, we'll be able to see exactly who is working on that file, right? How many times have you gone to open a file, maybe off a network server, and AutoCAD pops an error message that says, hey, this file is currently in use. Would you like to open it in read-only mode? Right? And then all of a sudden you got to stick your head up over the cube walls and start yelling out who's in my file to figure out who's messing with it or who has it open. Right? In this case, Vault is telling us very specifically, hey, Sam's working on the file right now, and it will not let anybody else edit it until Sam checks it back in. Right? So let's say just for grins that Sam's done. This was the change that he wanted to make. He's ready to do it from the top, check it in. Right? So he's going to check this in. We're going to go back through and get a very similar version of the dialog box. Added conk pad. Right? Again, we're not going to keep it checked out. We're just going to hit finish. And what will happen here is, again, the drawing's going to close just because we told it we didn't want to keep it checked out. Inside of the Vault client, if we refresh this, we'll see that it opens itself up. Version 2 is going to show up right here and available. There we go. With its comment, and now it's available for anybody else with the right permissions to be able to view that. Okay, so that was kind of our whirlwind through Vault. And like I said, I apologize, it's nowhere near doing Vault complete justice for what it can do. But in the sake of this, let's talk about BIM360 design just a little bit. And what you'll find, I think this particular product has, it could have the longest name next to Autodesk Storm and Sanitary Analysis. But, so technically it's called BIM360 Design Collaboration for Civil 3D. You will hear a lot of people shorten it to just BIM360 Design. The thing about, BIM360 is pretty much a platform. There are multiple modules that make it up. So we're going to primarily talk about two modules, BIM360 Docs and BIM360 Design, which is what adds the Civil 3D collaboration, right? So if you want your Civil 3D to work with BIM360 Design and have data shortcuts and things like that, you have to have BIM360 Design. Right? Now, the benefit that BIM360 Design, the difference of BIM360 Design is it's completely cloud-based. Vault is a behind the firewall solution. It is not cloud-based. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't, load it on an Amazon EC2 instance or a Microsoft Azure server. But, the software, you manage the software, it goes on your infrastructure in a Vault environment. BIM360 is cloud-based. It is software as a service, meaning that there is a subscription to it, right? We can access, BIM360 from inside of any product, right? I mentioned that in the Vault world, all the Autodesk products certainly, and there were integrations, Microsoft Office and MicroStation. With BIM360, any program can write directly to the BIM360 site. Again, project teams can get up and running very quickly. There's not a whole lot of workflow changes with this product either. And there's even less software to install, right? There is no really big client that needs to be installed because for the most part, it's web-based. The only thing that needs to be installed is a little helper application called Desktop Connector, and we'll take a look at it in just a minute. But it's a very small plugin. Once Desktop Connector gets loaded, then any product you can access BIM360. And finally, the other highlight, if you will, is you can access data from anywhere. Anywhere you have a web connection, you can get to your BIM360 information. And it's pretty much device agnostic at that point as well. There are apps for iOS and Android. We'll take a look at the Android version of it. But really, truly, if you've got a web browser, you can get to your BIM360 information. So let's take a peek at this one in action as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that. And I think where I'm going to start with this is from BIM360, and we log into BIM360 as well, but this uses an Autodesk account. So people are should at this point be fairly familiar with Autodesk accounts. It's a transition that Autodesk has been making over the last several years. But even in a Civil 3D world, it's this account right up here at the top. So your Autodesk ID, that's what links you to BIM360. You will see a list of the product or projects that you have been invited to. And really what we're looking at here is just one of those projects, right? I can have whatever elaborate file folder structure. In my case, I don't have a really great one there, but you can see here's a nice file, hierarchy, however you like to store data. If it's a valid, if it's valid on your network server, it's going to be valid inside of BIM360. Right? To view these files, you simply just click on them. Right? The viewers are all built in, behind the scenes. Right? We can look at it as I start to zoom in. Notice you get a little mini map, which is kind of nice. It shows you where you are in the file, and we'll zoom back out to take care of that. This is it is looking at all of the 3D data. Maybe this one doesn't have 3D data that goes along with it. Oh. Yeah, here we go. So we can spin this around. It's not much, but you can see there's definitely something going on with the surface right there. But hopefully this is showing up through WebEx as I spin it around. Now, knowing that, now let's talk about how we can get to it from Civil 3D. And the way that works is you have to have Civil 3D 2020.2 or higher. Right? It won't work with anything less. That being said, if you have part of the .2 update, and there is a .3 that's out now as well. But part of that update was a new start screen and start design. If we click on local, right, it starts to show us what files are local on our system and what files reside in BIM360 or on the cloud. Right, we can access BIM360 directly from Civil 3D by clicking on BIM360. It will take you to, it'll ask you what hub or what tenant you want to link to. This is what you've been invited to. And then from here, it will list all of the projects that you have access to. Right, inside of that project, we start to see the drawings. So in my case, if I click on Topo, right, we can see what version it is. There's 5 versions of this. Who authored it? Last time modified. Does it have any references? This could be data references. This could be data shortcuts, or this could be external references. But all I do is simply click on it, and what's gonna happen is Desktop Connector is going to go get that drawing for me, and it's going to open it inside of my Civil 3D. Right? I can make, really at this point, I work exactly how I'm used to working. Right? This is nothing more than another data shortcuts type of a project that hopefully everybody's familiar with. It's just linked to the BIM360 area as opposed to a network drive. Right? You create data shortcuts the exact same way. You consume them the exact same way. It is completely, at this point, it doesn't matter. The user's free to do what they typically would do. Right? This service takes care of the data locking for us. Right? We'll see that, from the Civil 3D perspective, you'll see a locked icon here. If you hover over it, it will tell you who has it locked. So obviously it's locked by me and when. Up on the website, what you'll see, if we refresh that, yeah, you'll see a little lock icon, and you can just hover over that lock icon, and it'll tell you the exact same bits of information. So to use this, let's go back to Civil 3D. Right, so let's say we want to use this. I simply, if I'm starting a new drawing, and let's say I'm going to start a roadway layout. So let's save it. Now, if I want to consume that existing ground surface inside of this drawing, it's as simple as finding my project. Here's the surface. Right-click, create a reference. Just like we would with any other project, probably. And we're off and running to the races to where we can do, start adding the alignment. Etc. Right? If we wanted to make, if we wanted to do profiles or the rest of the corridor design, you get the idea. We're running a little bit short, so we'll I won't belabor that anymore. But know that as soon as we hit save and start closing these drawings down, what this desktop connector is going to do is it's going to take care of transferring that information to BIM360 for me. So I will close this. And behind the scenes, BIM360 is already working on taking that, transferring it up. There is that little helper application that I was talking about. It shows you exactly what BIM360 is doing at any given time. So right now it's saying it's syncing that drawing that resides initially on my local machine, and it's pushing it back up to the platform. Right, let's take a quick peek at it back in the platform, and we can see that it's almost done here. It's still showing as locked, so we'll get it to release that lock. But from here, somebody else could take it and modify it as well. So the great thing about this is BIM360 is managing the file locks for us to ensure that only one person is going to make edits to these files at the same time. Right, there is capabilities inside of BIM360 for review and redlining. We'll open this and turn those on. Yeah, so we can see that there is redlining capability here. Again, anybody, and you're working in this web environment, so we're not, we don't have to have CAD integration to be able to do this. One other really cool feature of BIM360 is its drawing compare functionality. And I'm going to go back to that drawing that we started, or that I opened with, and that this was version 5 of this drawing. And the question comes, well, what if I wanted to compare this? So let's compare version 5 to version 4. How many times does somebody send you a drawing, and it's a busy drawing, it's involved, and you're trying to figure out what did they change? And the neat thing here is this will color code what has changed, right? So version 5 is in red, version 4 is in blue, and you can very easily see what's changed, right? This is essentially what I used to do back in the day of taking 2 vellums and overlaying them on a light table, trying to figure out what happened. Right, we've got the capability to turn things on and off. Right, I basically, we're only looking at version 4. Let's only look at version 5. So that starts to tell a little bit of the story. There is another comparison, to look at them side by side. And in this case, we get this little slider bar. So version 5 is over here on the left, version 4 is over here on the right. And again, you can kind of, by moving that slider bar, start to see what's changed between the versions. So definitely a helpful tool there. So finally, before I stop and open this up to questions, right? I talked about there are apps. So what you're looking at is literally a live version of my phone. So I pray nothing pops in on it. But yeah, this is Android. There's certainly iOS apps that function the same, but we can go into BIM360. Here's that project that we were looking at. The topo drawing. There's that roadway drawing. So here, let's open up that roadway drawing. This is the one we just made a second ago, and using pinch zoom, we're taking a peek at that drawing. Right? We can do more markups. So going through the markup tools, if I wanted to kind of things like this. We can, and that markup gets created. It's getting transmitted back to BIM360 on the fly. which is really nice. There is a concept of issues inside of BIM360 as well, to where you can basically say, hey, there's something wrong, and assign it to someone to be corrected. They get emails, they get notified, the whole 9 yards. But anything that we do on the on this app is being transmitted right back to the BIM360 site, right? So it's kind of instant collaboration, if you will. So just wanted to show that. Oh, and then I laid it side by side. But all right, with that, let's jump back to the PowerPoint real quick and start to wrap this up. Right. So just in summary, here's kind of a really quick side by side of the two products. Vault being behind the firewall. Oops. Yeah, Vault being behind the firewall. BIM360 being cloud-based, software as a service. They both do versioning. Vault has a concept of revision tracking. Maybe in our world, that's 30, 60, 90%. Submittals, 100% submittals. Vault is a very mature product. It's been around for a very long time. BIM360 Design is relatively new. Like I said, it became available right at Halloween of last year, and it is being rapidly developed. There are a lot of different teams that are developing into the BIM360 overall solution right now. There's mobile apps available for BIM360, a very robust web viewer for BIM360. We didn't talk really about the Vault web viewer, or what you'll also hear it called as the Thing client. But it's somewhat limited in what you can do. It gets the job done, allowing you to interact with Vault data from a read-only perspective, but it doesn't have the fancy viewers and things like that BIM360 does. And then Vault supports older versions of Civil 3D, whereas BIM360 Design, you have to be on 2020 and newer. So I would be remiss if, because BIM360 is so new, imagine it does have a service, to help you get going with it. So if it's, if BIM360 Design is something you think you might want to explore, we've got a one-day jumpstart service to help you get going with it. It talks everything from account administration to creating projects, and then using some of the document management tools, as well as the Civil 3D information.